Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the MSP Sales Podcast. My name is Tim McNeil, and today with me I've got the usual suspects of Rob Rogers and Allison Rogers, or not Allison Rogers. Allison Rogers is Rob Rogers' wife. So we'll go with Allison Trisco today. How about that?
Sounds good.
Yeah. How you guys doing?
I'm
Good
fine.
work.
I don't think Trisco's happy with you, but I'm
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I may have.
I don't need
started
more
that
than
off
one
not great.
husband, Tim. I'll tell you
Yeah,
that. One's
yeah.
enough.
Well, got to start somewhere, so we can only go up. All right. Well, look, on this week's show, what we wanted to focus on was just the importance of marketing to verticals and creating calendars around that. Specifically, having a quarter over quarter calendar. One thing that we have recently started here at OSR is marketing peer groups. Specifically, the conversation yesterday was geared around how to go after local government as well as schools and different tips and tricks. So we wanted to pull that over into here and have a brief discussion on some of the things that we talked about and some of the best practices that we've seen throughout the years. So with that, I guess, Rob, I'll kick it off with you. Can you just give us an overview of some of the things that we've seen to be successful in the past?
Sure. So when we talk about marketing calendars, we're talking about some known times in the year where certain verticals have a higher than average chance for you to be successful or not to be successful, right? You don't call a CPA in March and April, right? You call them in June. That's when you call the CPAs because they just finished everything. And another example is schools and small governments. They are June and July. They're building up their fiscal budget for the next year and finishing up their budget for this year. So getting them right as the school year is ending and right as they're finalizing everything before they go on vacation is a really smart way to increase your averages, your at-bats, basically, to get to these people who are normally difficult to get to. And schools and governments particularly are marketing centric opportunities, meaning that you have to go in with marketing first and then sales call. You have to do a lot of touch points on them. So it's very it's a very good time right now to do this because of the the end of the school year and how people are trying to use up the end of that budget and set up their budget for next year.
And Allie, I know you've had a huge amount of experience in the past with SLED and Fed opportunities. Can you expand on some of the things that you've done in the past?
Yeah, and to just kind of tee off what Rob was just saying too, it's when I feel like when people go into some of these, we're going to run a marketing campaign and maybe it's on a vertical, but they don't have all the pieces. Like to your point, who's fiscal, who's calendar year, breaking it down by schools, right? What's getting into the nitty gritty of, is it district? Is it private? Is it charter? There's differences in there. Some are going to operate on a district budget. They're going to have district guidelines. Others that are private and charter, they have money being infused from other areas. They've got booster, they've got grants, they've got that are a little bit different. So they may have some more money to spend and they don't have to operate with certain windows because they write their own. Same thing on the SLED and Fed side. So when we say SLED, we're talking state, local, EDU. EDU could also be higher education. So if you're talking colleges as opposed to district again, right, their timelines for the school calendar will be the same and their budgeting is typically around the same, but different monies, especially if they're private university versus state university, right? They're going to operate a little bit differently. So you have to know what's wrapped around those before you just go in and decide to market.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we talked about yesterday, and when Rob and I were still in the industry, we had a few towns that we worked with in Connecticut, and specifically, one thing that used to work for us was there was a Rob. Can you fill in what the name was? I'm drawing a blank on what the state and town.
Sure, Council of Small Towns.
Thank you. Counts as small
cost.
towns.
Yeah.
Yes. So we used to go to a fair amount of their events, and we would meet with people, and it's really important. The reason I bring that up is every state's different. However, every state probably does have something similar where, whether it's a regional or a statewide thing, towns or school districts within towns, whatever that may look like, will have different events throughout the year. And it's very important to be involved in those and ideally become a subject matter expert so that you can be looked at as that authority. That's one thing that used to work extremely well for us.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is too, one of the things is, especially when you're dealing with things on the municipality side or the, local school district side. Are you going to your superintendent of schools? Or are you going to your business manager? Or you're going to your IT business manager? They all have different meetings that you can call in, find out, and be part of, where they'll let you come in as a vendor. Maybe you have to buy them lunch, but if you can get in there, and do a lunch and learn with them and pitch what you could do for them on a district level, right? You may not just get the school. You may get the school and the police department and the fire department. And sometimes those things are conjoined, sometimes they're not, and they all operate separately. That's going to depend town over town.
Yeah. And I guess we'll shift the topic a little bit on how to, what we have seen successful as far as creating those calendars, what to do, when to do, how to do. So I guess, Rob, can you lead us on, or start off with that? And I know, Ellie, you may have the most to add to this, so I probably should have kicked it to you, but Rob.
Sure, Allison, go right ahead. That's fine.
Yeah, have at it.
I am your wife after all. No.
Yeah. Apparently this whole thing changed.
Yeah, right. So getting it back to a marketing calendar, right? It's knowing those timelines. So if you're going after something that's going to be fiscal, right? You're right in there. You better already have it done because July's right around the corner. But is there still time if you haven't? Absolutely, because you could catch that wave for, August or September. The biggest thing is knowing how long, if you're going to do something, is your kickoff going to take. Do you have to build a list? Do you have to get the content? How long is a lead time if you're ordering a widget, right? Know how many weeks you're going to need leading up to that. So let's say right now you're looking a quarter ahead. Well, you've got Cybersecurity Awareness Month coming up in October. You're going to start talking about that in September leading up to October. You have to be working on that stuff now. So your calendar should be planned ahead.
So one of the things that we have found very successful with the clients that I'm working with is building out. You go into those non-traditional holiday card websites, right? Like calendar.com. There's a couple of them out there, and it's basically they just have every non-traditional holiday that you could ever even possibly think of. Last month was National Barbecue Day. That was a fantastic way to, get a marketing, template going. Next month is cybersecurity. So there's a lot of different opportunities out there to do that. And looking at the calendar at the very beginning of the year, taking into account some of the vertical restrictions and opportunities, that's how you build out the marketing calendar. It's not about, just like what is the keyword that we want to chase after this month, but it's the proactive planning throughout the calendar year. And the things that you take advantage of are what are restrictions for this month? What are opportunities for this month? And what are some of the non-traditional holidays that we could employ during this time period to kind of try and make a multi-channel cadence out of this?
And to that point, I mean, from a non-traditional holiday standpoint, that's something that we've subscribed to here at OSR over the years, and even prior to us starting this. I've said this to a lot of people in the past, not on the podcast yet, that probably the best one out there, even though it happens every 4 years, is Leap Day. How many people get a Leap Day card? Not many.
Yeah.
Rob gave a great example of a client that we have that is located down south that did a whole campaign around the National Barbecue Day. We actually had sent out a card in the beginning of May for May the 4th be with you. So these are examples of non-traditional holidays that you can send something in the mail and follow up with some outreach. And it's it's kind of funny for a lot of people. I think people appreciate it, but it also, as important, if not more important, whoever's following up on that card or that letter or whatever you might send, it gives them a reason to call. Hey, just following up on that piece of mail that we sent out. Did you happen to receive that?
Whether they got it or not. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and to that point, we've actually found that we've had salespeople call on these mailings before and maybe call a day or two before they show up accidentally. And just referencing that has actually worked for them to get the appointment. So again, just a call to action for those salespeople out there. It's really nice to have them be able to reference something that was sent in the mail. So.
Sure. I kind of wanted to bring it back to one of the questions that we had yesterday in the marketing peer group. Was, what are the opportunities in small towns and school districts? And what if you don't, what are the opportunities? And so I would say this: if it's a medium-sized town, 50,000 people, then your opportunities are going to be co-managed opportunities. So if you're going into a school district, then the person that you're chasing after there is the IT director. I know normally you don't chase after the IT directors, but in this instance, the IT director is a project manager, and they're not actually going out there and trying to do all these different projects, for all the different school systems. They're trying to coordinate the different outsourced components to get these projects done. So chasing after that IT director for co-op opportunities, traditionally it's projects, but the projects can lead to MRR. But the foot in the door is always a project on those mid-sized towns. On the smaller sized towns, so if you're in a smaller territory, you want to go after the mayor. The mayor is typically the one who has control of the budget, and they are the ones who are going to control the first line opportunity. It is a top-down marketing opportunity from that perspective, if that makes sense. Did that make sense, Tim?
Yeah, I got you.
And that is a pure MRR play. That is, you're trying to, get their monthly recurring revenue for the small town, and then branching out from there. We have many clients that once they get into the town, then they get into the police department, then they get into the public works, and it works just like that. It spreads, and it all starts from the mayor, because the mayor controls the budget, and they're trying to provide the most value for the town.
Or first selectman if it's small town.
First selectman, right. Yeah.
Either one.
Yeah, either way. But I mean, there's a lot of relationship building there, especially if it's a first selectman.
Yeah.
Yes.
100%. And the way, the way that you get in there, besides doing the marketing approach, is definitely associations. The association will get in there. They're a people pleaser, right? They're a glad hander. I'm not saying that in a negative way, but they will always meet with you, talk with you, and have conversations, because they're looking at you like a way that they can help the town.
Yes. Yeah. And that, to Rob's point of getting into a smaller, a smaller town and getting that MRR for the town, and then expanding into the police department or the fire department or what have you, because a lot of areas have these associations locally. I mean, these towns, they're talking, right? Like they're trying to be better. They're trying to figure out what to do best by or at least you'd like to think they're trying to do best by the people that they represent. So IT is a conversation that comes up a fair amount. So if you are able to get into a town in your local market, it often is followed not too far behind a second one and a third one. And then you just, like Rob said, you land and expand. That's the important part there.
Yeah. The other thing that came up yesterday is co-op. What if you're not on the co-op list, right? There's this giant vendor list with approved pricing, and if you're not on that list, it doesn't matter. That's not always true. And we were never on any co-op list, and our clients that I'm dealing with are not on the co-op list. You use the co-op list when you don't know any better. And it's not a mandatory thing. It's an optional thing to make it easier for the town to just say, well, I'll just go to my vendor list if I have no idea what I'm doing. So if you go in, you have that conversation, and then you help them create the RFP, because it's always going to go to an RFP, and you help them create the RFP, you will box out the co-op and you will get the bid, and it'll be a value-based bid instead of a cost bid. And that was, one of the tricks that we use, and that I ask my clients to, consider whenever they're going out and doing these vertical approaches.
Yeah. And to that point, I'm glad you brought that up. When, again, going back to when Rob and I were still in the industry, we had a large amount, and this was brought up yesterday, we had a large amount of nonprofits that we were dealing with. And I know we've been talking about the more the SLED, the state and local, and the education, but nonprofits can be lumped into this as well. If you have the ability to control that RFP, it's going to be pretty hard to lose that deal. It's going to be pretty hard to lose that one. So being that, again, it all goes back to starting off by being that subject matter expert, getting your foot in the door, and then controlling the scenario from there on out. It was brought up that, and this is 100% true, it was brought up by somebody in the group yesterday that you can very quickly lose that relationship, right? So it's really important to stay in front of it and just always, not that you're not already, but always putting your best foot forward, always knowing who the right people are to talk to, making sure that you're over communicating with them so that you can control that RFP the next time it's due.
Yep.
Well, I guess, and I guess we're coming to an end with this edition. Before we part ways, I just wanted to see if Rob or Ellie, if you had anything else that you'd like to add.
Trisco?
No, look, the bottom line is know your vertical, set your calendar, know, especially if you're going after, district or municipality or whatever it might be, that you could do a lot of relationship building there. At the end of the day, if they need to, and this is any government, state, local, fed, if they have to go into a specific bucket, it may not be always lowest and best. It may be that they have to separate it out to someone, meaning, are you small women owned? Are you veteran owned? Are you, and there's, that's just going to go where it's going to go. But those buckets could change over time too. So build a relationship, have your calendar, know your verticals. That's the most part.
Yeah, good point. That's the important of understanding your client deck and going deep and wide in the understanding of the business intelligence of both the account and your own company and where you can fit in the marketplace. Tim, do you have anything before I shut it down here? Do you have anything?
No, I mean, I think Ellie touched on the point that I would have brought up. So I think you covered what I was going to say.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Well, I appreciated this. This was a good one. I always love doing revenue generating, vertical focused stuff. For anybody who's still on this call and still listening to us at this point, this episode will be up on our LinkedIn profile and anywhere that you get your podcast. Please, we invite you to send in some information. If you have a topic that you would like for us to cover, maybe ghosting, maybe something that is near and dear to your heart in your sales or marketing journey in your MSP, we'd love to hear about it. Until next time, Tim, Allison Rogers, I appreciate you both.
Yep. Thanks for coming, Allison Rogers. Bye.